And welcome back. We are wrapping things up with Charles Frazier. His book, Crossing the Line, talks about therapies needed to heal and rehabilitate domestic violence offenders. Well, we're talking next about his next level of work. Before we get to your other work, I want to get back to when people self-regulating. You're giving your 5 tips on how to heal or rehabilitate the abuser, the offender, right? You mentioned self-exploration, self-awareness, self-development, self-determination. So self-sustainability, self-regulating behavior during conflict, which I think is probably the hardest part of your work, is that how do you get people to regulate? What kind of things can they do to say, okay, I have a problem with my anger, violence, etc. How can I begin to regulate? Well, I know you mentioned before speaking, mapping it out beforehand, what are the consequences, but what are some other things folks can do when they feel that they're about to lose it?
Sure.
To say, okay, let me take a deep breath, let me do, what kind of things can you advise them on?
Right, exactly what you just said, a deep breath.
Deep breath
can be one of those things.
Right.
Self-regulating says that I have the capacity, the ability to get myself back under control, right? Because I may not have my best friend near me to say, Charles, cool down.
Right.
Or I may not have the police nearby. I need to be able to self-regulate if I'm by myself or with someone else to say, I have the capacity to make choices in my life, and I choose not to use aggression as a way to express my feelings. So we teach people, for example, meditation. We could teach them mindfulness. Some people use yoga. It's all different types of ways.
Right.
Exactly. Some people use prayer.
Right.
Some people use traditional ways to just help their minds to reset, where they could just take a moment. I call it that space between, the event and the decision, right? So what happens is I get triggered and I'm upset. I need to create a space for myself before I react.
Right.
And that's what that self-regulation does. It gives me a chance just to think about it just for that second to say, is this worth it? Is this the way you want to respond to this?
So really it's about choosing not to respond sometimes, right? Sometimes the machismo of guys in particular, they feel they have to respond to any slight or sign of disrespect, where sometimes you got to choose just, okay, I'm not going to respond to that, and kind of, that's why I think you're saying, back to your early work, your homework, trying to train yourself where you're not going to respond to things that may upset you, right? Sometimes that's a very hard decision, that I'm not going to give a reaction, but that's tough to do too.
But just think about how much strength that takes to make that decision when the crowd is around and you feel like you want to react, where you can have
save
enough
face, and the machismo kicks in.
Exactly. You have enough inner strength to say, no, that's not me.
Right.
And walk away from it versus reacting.
Right, and getting yourself more engaged.
Correct.
That takes a lot, but I would think if you could master that for guys and people who are aggressive, to have the ability to say, I'm just not going to engage, I'm going to walk away. Right? For some guys, that's the hardest thing in the world, to walk away and to not engage in a situation where you want to one up the person who's offending you, and you want to kind of counter, but to walk away and say, I'm not going there. That's very difficult, right?
Right.
So listen, next for you, we have about 2 minutes left. You've got a new book out, real quick on that, and then you also want to work with some of the sport franchises, NBA, NFL, some of the corporations where domestic violence is an issue, and work with them on that bigger platform. So about 2 minutes, let folks know what you're doing. That's what
Sure. So as you mentioned, we published our second book. It's a treatment handbook for clinicians who want to do the work that we're doing.
It's you. Who's your author? Your co-author is?
Cheryl Grayson.
And the name of the book is?
The Domestic Violence Treatment Handbook.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we kept it really simple.
Right, I got you.
All right, and so, because domestic violence doesn't discriminate, Stan. It hits, same-sex couples. It hits people who are affluent, people who are poor, people who are educated, people who have no high school, education. It really doesn't discriminate.
The one common denominator, you can't manage your trigger, right? That's the one common denominator. You don't know how to self-regulate is the one common theme, no matter what background you are.
Correct.
Right?
Oftentimes you have unresolved trauma that you don't even know why you're reacting the way you're reacting. You're just responding to some hurt. And until that hurt is really addressed and processed and healed, then I'm more susceptible to be impulsive and make poor decisions, right?
Right. And you want to do some work with the sports leagues. We know that domestic violence manifests in the sports league, and people tend to think, well, they're only NFL, NBA problems, not knowing that that's across the board, but they're high profile in those leagues. So what kind of things, what do you want to do on that level? Because they're dealing with money and stress and trauma, all the things you've talked about here, but on a higher, more lucrative level.
Exactly. So they're even more vulnerable, more susceptible. And I'm saying to those franchises, let's be preventive. Let's not wait until we have a situation where, the news and suspensions and being barred from, the team.
Right.
If you know that this player is having difficulty in their relationship, then we should seek help for them. We should support him.
Be preventive in assuming that they don't know the strategies and teach them that.
Correct.
All right, Charles Frazier, thank you for your time. We got to run. We appreciate it very much. We want to thank you for tuning in. Remember, Real People with Stan Simpson airs Sunday mornings, 10:30, following The Real Story with Al Tursey and Jen Bernstein. It's Connecticut's new Sunday Power Hour for the good folks here at Fox 61. I'm Stan Simpson. See you next week.